How did I get started painting and drawing? Well, actually I started very young. My parents had a little grocery store, and I have a brother that's 10 years older than me. And it was a rainy day, and we were both very bored. And I hadn't even learned how to write yet. I was 2 years old. And Richard asked me, how would you like to learn how to write your name? And of course, I wanted to do anything Richard asked me to do. So he would write out the letters of my name, and I followed them exactly. And we wrote my name and his name and my parents' name. And then he said something that really changed my life. He said, would you like to learn how to draw? And I said, yes. And so he drew our favorite television character, Zorro. And I reproduced mine to look like his. Of course, my Zorro had 3 legs, but still, I really liked it, and it really opened up something for me, because at that little grocery store, I entertained myself for years with paper and pencil, just drawing constantly. Exactly like Van Gogh, I guess. My brother got me started. You know, he drew very well too, but he didn't pursue it like I did. Later on, when I was teaching, I actually offered him free classes, and he did take them for a while, and he was very, very good. In fact, one of my students saw one of his pieces and mistakenly thought it was mine, so that was quite a compliment. Well, not that I'm a great artist, but they thought that his was just as good as mine. You know, I kind of developed my style of teaching, and because I took classes from an art instructor in Tampa. Her name was Mrs. Austin Angle, and it was kids' classes. And I started with her when I was 13 years old. And I was with her for a couple of years, and I went through drawing and painting, watercolor, oils. And when I was 16, she came to me one day and she said, you know, Mark, there's really nothing else that I can offer you in teaching. I wonder if you would like to join me as my assistant. Well, it had never occurred to me ever that I would be an art instructor. But that day changed my life, because I found out something that very day, and that was that I enjoyed teaching even more than I enjoyed painting. And I have a great passion for painting, but my true calling in life is to teach art. You know, in these videos that we've filmed, I've had the opportunity to paint these different styles of the masters. As you can see here behind me, I've done Vermeer and Van Gogh and Rubens, Rembrandt, Da Vinci. And the reason I do that is because that's exactly the way Mrs. Austin Angle taught me. She would take books loaded with these pictures of the old masters' paintings, and she said, if you want to learn how to paint, let's learn from the best. And so I would actually copy the paintings. And interestingly, I found a quotation from Leonardo da Vinci that said, if you really want to learn to paint, you should copy the work of those who came before you. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, that way you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So by painting so many of these paintings, I actually kind of learned to adapt each style. In the end, what it did, it transformed it into my style. There's a little piece of all these artists in every painting that I make originally that I do. You know, it's interesting, whenever I get a visit from a fellow instructor of art, they're always very surprised at the manner and the way that I teach, because my classes are mostly open studio format. I can have a dozen students in one room with a half a dozen different media, from watercolor and pastels, acrylic, oils, charcoal. They're all working on different subjects, and they're all at every level of expertise. And I kind of developed that idea from the one-room schoolhouse that we used to have here in America. You would have very young students that would be in the classroom, and you'd also have some in the older kids in the higher grades. And it was amazing, because the older ones would influence the younger ones. Also, the older ones would get to hear the lessons they learned when they were younger over and over and over again. And we know that that's how you learn, is through the repetition of hearing and seeing things. And of course, the younger ones have something to look forward to aspire to. So I find by combining these in one classroom, it actually makes for a better teaching situation. I think I would like to meet, if I went back in time, probably Leonardo da Vinci. And what I'd like to do is find a physician, and I hope that the physician could get his attention a little better so he could focus and create more paintings and probably do greater work than he did, which was amazing, but to have it come to a little bit more completion so many years ahead of its time, because he seemed to get distracted from one thing to another. But to me, that Renaissance man that he was, and he truly embodied that. I mean, he wrote music, he created architecture, he did war machines, he did drawing, he did painting. It was amazing, all the aspects, because he's the greatest mind of that century. How could one not want to meet somebody like that? And besides, I speak a little bit of Italian.